What would you do if, on the first night of your honeymoon, you uncovered a truth so shocking that it shattered everything you thought you knew about the person you just married? Would you walk away, or would you stay and try to understand? For Jasmine Carter, a young, ambitious woman from Atlanta, Georgia, the fairy tale wedding she had always dreamed of became a nightmare within hours of saying, "I do." What she discovered that night sent her running to the courthouse to file for an annulment before the ink on her marriage certificate had even dried. But was her husband, Darius Thompson, truly guilty of deception, or was there a far more sinister force at play? As this story unfolds, you'll see shocking betrayals, deep-rooted secrets, and an ending so unexpected it will leave you speechless. Was Jasmine the victim, or was Darius? And who was the mysterious figure lurking in the shadows, ensuring that the truth remained buried? Buckle up, because this is not your typical love story. This is a tale of ambition, betrayal, and a wedding night revelation that changed everything. Before we continue, please take a moment to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to stay updated. Your support means everything to us, and we're truly grateful to have you here. Thank you. Jasmine Carter had spent her life striving for perfection. Born and raised in Atlanta, she was the first in her family to graduate from college, earning a degree in business administration. She was smart, driven, and had a smile that could light up a room. With a high-paying job at a prestigious marketing firm and a sleek high-rise apartment overlooking the city, she seemed to have it all. But perfection came at a price. From a young age, Jasmine had been taught that success was the only option. Raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to provide for her, Jasmine had witnessed struggle firsthand. She had sworn to herself that she would never live that way. She worked tirelessly, climbing the corporate ladder faster than most, but in doing so, she built walls around her heart. Relationships came second to her ambitions, and love was something she viewed as a potential distraction, until she met Darius. Darius seemed like the missing piece in her carefully structured life. He wasn't just attractive, he exuded confidence and a sense of security that drew her in. His presence was intoxicating, and for the first time, Jasmine allowed herself to dream beyond her career. Could he be the one? Could she finally have it all? Love, success, and happiness? As their relationship blossomed, Jasmine believed she had found her perfect match. But as she would soon learn, perfection is often an illusion, and behind Darius's perfect smile hid secrets that would unravel her entire world. Then came Darius Thompson, tall, dark-skinned, and strikingly handsome. Darius was the kind of man who commanded attention when he walked into a room. A former college basketball player turned successful personal trainer, he had charm, wit, and a body sculpted like a Greek statue. But behind that perfect exterior was a past shrouded in mystery. Growing up in a rough neighborhood in Chicago, Darius had learned to navigate the world with caution. Raised by a single father, a man hardened by life and struggling with demons of his own, Darius had sought refuge in basketball, using the sport as his escape. He was a star athlete, recruited by top schools, but an unexpected injury ended his dreams of going pro. With his future uncertain, he turned to personal training as a way to stay connected to the world he loved. Though he built a reputation as a successful fitness coach, whispers followed him. Former teammates had spoken about how he had a tendency to disappear for months at a time. Old acquaintances mentioned that he had severed all ties with his childhood friends. And there were rumors about a woman in his past who had vanished without a trace. To Jasmine, none of that mattered at first. She saw only the polished, confident man who treated her like royalty. He was the perfect gentleman, showering her with flowers, extravagant dates, and whispered promises of forever. But beneath the charm, something dark simmered just beneath the surface, waiting to be exposed. Within 6 months, they were engaged. Within a year, they were standing at the altar, exchanging vows in a lavish ceremony that had the whole city talking. The grand event was held at one of Atlanta's most exclusive venues, a sprawling estate adorned with cascading floral arrangements, glowing chandeliers, and a live orchestra serenading the guests. Celebrities, socialites, and business elites filled the pews, watching as Jasmine and Darius promised each other a lifetime of love and devotion. The air was thick with excitement, yet beneath the glamour, a faint shadow loomed. Darius seemed tense that day, his hands slightly clammy as he slipped the ring onto Jasmine's finger. He smiled for the cameras, whispered sweet nothings into her ear. But Jasmine sensed something unspoken behind his gaze. A flicker of hesitation. A sliver of doubt. Perhaps it was just nerves, she told herself. After all, marriage was a big step. The reception was just as extravagant, with guests dancing well into the night under twinkling fairy lights. Darius held Jasmine close, his grip firm, almost possessive. Friends and family toasted to their future, oblivious to the secret he carried, a secret that would unravel their perfect union before it even had a chance to begin. It was a match made in heaven, or so it seemed. The honeymoon suite was draped in soft candlelight, the air thick with the scent of roses and anticipation. Jasmine had waited for this moment, though they had shared moments of passion. Darius had always insisted on waiting until marriage to fully consummate their love. He wanted it to be special, he had said. But as Jasmine leaned in, something felt eerily wrong. Darius hesitated, his breathing uneven. His hands trembled slightly as she touched him, an action that should have ignited passion but instead evoked a look of distress on his face. Jasmine tried to brush it off, thinking it was just nerves, but as her hands roamed, she encountered something that made her blood turn ice cold. Her heart pounded as she pulled back, eyes wide with confusion. Darius, what's going on? He swallowed hard, looking down as if the weight of a secret too heavy to bear had finally collapsed upon him. Jasmine, please, I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how. Dread crept up Jasmine's spine. Tell me what? Her voice was barely above a whisper. A tense silence settled between them before Darius finally spoke words that sent her world spiraling into chaos. I'm not the man you think I am. Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. The man she had married, the one she had trusted with her heart and soul, had been keeping something so monumental from her that it made her entire reality feel like a cruel joke. And in that moment, she knew. Her wedding night would not be a night of passion but one of reckoning, betrayal, and a horrifying truth she never saw coming. Now, she understood why. As she reached for him, something felt off. His body, once familiar, now felt foreign in ways she couldn't quite describe. His skin, normally warm to the touch, felt unnaturally rigid. His breathing was shallow, his muscles tense, as if he were bracing for an impact he knew was coming. Jasmine's heart pounded. A creeping sense of unease settled over her, sending a chill up her spine. She tried to convince herself it was just wedding night jitters, but deep down, she knew better. She traced her fingers along his arm, but something was undeniably different. Then, her hands brushed against something unexpected, something artificial. Her stomach twisted in knots. Darius, what is this? She whispered, pulling back to look him in the eye. His expression darkened. Panic flickered in his eyes before he shut them tightly, as if shielding himself from the inevitable. Jasmine, I was going to tell you. I swear, I was. But I was afraid you'd leave me before giving me a chance. Her world tilted on its axis. Tell me what? Her voice barely came out. Then came the moment that shattered everything. The revelation that Darius was not the man she thought he was. Not entirely. That the body she thought she knew had been sculpted by more than just the gym. That the man she had married had been keeping a secret so immense, so life-altering, that it turned her wedding night into a waking nightmare. Panic set in. Her mind raced. Was this a dream? A cruel joke? But the look on Darius's face told her everything she needed to know. I was going to tell you, he whispered. I didn't know how. Jasmine felt the floor fall out from beneath her. The man she had married, the man she had given her heart to, had been keeping a life-altering secret. And worse yet, the reason they had waited, the reason their intimate moments had always been cut short, his body wasn't capable of fulfilling the promises he had made. Tears blurred her vision as she stumbled back, reaching for her phone. By sunrise, she was sitting in a lawyer's office, demanding an annulment. But the story was far from over. Darius begged for another chance. But Jasmine wouldn't hear it. The betrayal was too deep, the shame too unbearable. She had built her life on trust and ambition. And now, both had crumbled beneath her feet. Filing for an annulment had seemed like the only logical step. Yet, just as she attempted to reclaim her life, the shadows of her past began to creep back in. It started subtly, whispers in the wind. Anonymous messages flooded her phone, each one more unnerving than the last. You don't know the full story. He's not the liar here. You are. She tried to dismiss them as cruel pranks, perhaps from someone in Darius's circle seeking revenge for her public rejection of him. But then came the unthinkable. One evening, she returned home to find her apartment ransacked, clothes shredded, mirrors smashed, and scrawled across the walls in red paint, "You'll regret this." A wave of terror gripped her. She called the police, but there were no signs of forced entry, no missing items, just destruction and a clear message. Whoever had done this hadn't come to steal, they had come to threaten. A single thought plagued her mind. Was it Darius? Or was it someone else? As Jasmine tried to make sense of it all, another chilling realization settled in. This wasn't about the annulment. This was something much, much deeper. Someone didn't just want to scare her. They wanted to keep her from uncovering the truth. You don't know the full story. He's not the liar here. You are. And then, the unthinkable happened. Just days after filing for divorce, Jasmine returned home to find her apartment ransacked. Clothes shredded, mirrors smashed, and scrawled across the walls in red paint, "You'll regret this." Terrified, she called the police, but there were no signs of forced entry, nothing stolen. Whoever had done this had wanted to send a message. Desperate for answers, Jasmine hired a private investigator to dig into Darius's past. What they uncovered was darker than she ever imagined. Darius's transition was not the only secret he was hiding. He had once been involved with a woman named Monique, a woman who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. Police had investigated him but never found enough evidence to charge him. But the details of Monique's case were even more disturbing than Jasmine initially realized. Monique had last been seen at a nightclub, where she had reportedly argued with a man matching Darius's description. Witnesses claimed they had left together, but after that, she was never seen again. Her phone had been found weeks later, abandoned in a dumpster miles away from her apartment. Its screen shattered, the messages inside mysteriously wiped clean. But there was something else, something that had been overlooked. Among her last known transactions was a purchase at a gas station outside the city, just hours after she had last been seen. Security footage showed a figure wearing a hoodie, standing by a car that eerily resembled Darius's. The footage was grainy, making identification difficult, but the silhouette, the way he moved, it all pointed to Darius. Jasmine's stomach churned as she combed through old reports. Why hadn't this detail been enough for the police to act sooner? Had someone covered for him? Or had another player in this dark game been pulling the strings all along? The deeper Jasmine dug, the more she realized Monique's disappearance was more than a tragic case. It was a warning. Every new detail uncovered added another layer of dread. Had Monique stumbled upon something dangerous before she vanished? Was she silenced because she knew too much? Jasmine's thoughts raced. If Darius was responsible, why had he targeted Monique? And if he wasn't, who else had been involved? She began retracing Monique's final steps, poring over old police reports, speaking with people who had known her. What she found left her shaken. One of Monique's close friends revealed that she had received a voicemail from Monique the night she disappeared, a panicked message that was quickly deleted from the police records. Jasmine managed to retrieve it, and as she listened, her blood ran cold. "I think he knows," Monique had whispered. "I have proof. If something happens to me, tell." The recording ended abruptly. Monique had been trying to warn someone. But who? And about what? The missing piece was right in front of Jasmine, but she couldn't see it yet. And then, a final, terrifying thought struck her. What if Monique wasn't the only one in danger? Adding to the intrigue, Jasmine discovered that Monique had confided in a friend about a new relationship she had entered before her disappearance, one where she felt uneasy but couldn't quite explain why. The details seemed eerily similar to Jasmine's own experience with Darius, down to the grand gestures, the intoxicating charm, and the creeping sense of something being off just beneath the surface. As Jasmine pieced everything together, she realized that Darius might not have just been hiding a past. He could have been covering up something far more sinister. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the picture they formed was far darker than she had ever imagined. She went through old photographs, text messages, and bank statements, desperately trying to make sense of what she had discovered. Every time she thought she had reached the bottom of it, another horrifying detail emerged. Darius had withdrawn large amounts of cash just days before their wedding. Why? And why had he been visiting abandoned buildings on the outskirts of town, according to his GPS records? Then, there was the note, a crumpled piece of paper stuffed into the pocket of one of Darius's old jackets that she found in their closet. The words scrawled in messy, frantic handwriting chilled her to the bone. She knows. It's only a matter of time. Jasmine's pulse pounded as she read it over and over. Who was it meant for? And more importantly, who had written it? Darius, or someone else? And now, she feared, she was next on his list. Or worse, someone else's. And then came the biggest shock of all. Monique was Jasmine's cousin. Had he married her as revenge? Had he played her, knowing exactly who she was? And if so, was she next? Determined to get the truth, Jasmine confronted Darius. But he denied everything. I loved you, he swore. I still do. But before she could press further, there was a loud knock at the door. The police. Their faces were grim, their stance firm, radiating an aura of authority that sent a chill through the air. Jasmine's pulse quickened as she stepped back, glancing at Darius, who seemed frozen in place. Darius Thompson, one of the officers said, his voice sharp and unwavering. You are under arrest, Jasmine gasped, her mind struggling to process what was happening. Arrest? For what? The officer's gaze met hers, unreadable. For murder. The word hit the room like an explosion, sending Jasmine staggering backward. Her ears rang, and her vision blurred for a moment as she tried to process what she had just heard. Murder? Her husband? The man who had held her close just hours ago. A lump formed in her throat, but she forced herself to swallow it down. She looked at Darius, his face drained of all color, his hands trembling slightly. His breathing was rapid, erratic, his chest rising and falling in quick bursts. He turned to her, eyes pleading, but Jasmine couldn't move, couldn't react. Her mind was a storm of memories, every moment they had shared, every promise he had made, every reassurance he had whispered late at night. Had it all been a lie? The officers stepped forward, their voices flat and rehearsed. Sir, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Darius shook his head furiously, his muscles tensing as if he might bolt. No, this isn't happening, he muttered under his breath. Jasmine, tell them. You know me, I would never. But Jasmine's lips parted, and no words came out. Because for the first time, she realized with absolute certainty, she didn't know him at all. Darius's expression shifted from shock to desperate defiance. No, this is a mistake. I didn't do anything. His voice cracked, his breathing quickened, and for the first time since she had met him, she saw something she never expected. Fear. The officers closed in, their hands firm as they reached for him. Sir, you need to come with us. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Darius's eyes darted to Jasmine, searching for something. Reassurance, understanding, a plea for help. Jasmine, you have to believe me. You know me, I would never. But did she? A chilling realization crept into her mind. She had thought she knew him. But now, with the weight of this accusation hanging in the air, she wasn't so sure anymore. As he was dragged away, Jasmine felt the crushing weight of doubt settle over her. If he was guilty, she had been sleeping next to a monster. But if he wasn't, then the real killer was still out there. The officers didn't respond. They moved swiftly, handcuffing Darius as he struggled against their grip. Jasmine's heart pounded in her chest, her thoughts spiraling. Was this real? Could the man she had once loved truly be a killer? As they led him away, Darius turned to Jasmine, his eyes filled with something between fear and a plea for help. Jasmine, you have to believe me. This isn't what it seems, he shouted. But was it? Jasmine wasn't sure anymore, and that terrified her the most. Darius was under arrest, not for fraud, not for deception, for murder. Jasmine watched in horror as the officers led him away. As the truth unraveled, she learned that Monique had not simply disappeared. Her body had been found years ago, buried in a shallow grave. DNA evidence had finally linked Darius to the crime. Jasmine had nearly married a killer. But here's where it gets even crazier. Before being taken away, Darius slipped Jasmine a note. I didn't do it. The real killer is still out there. Be careful. Was he telling the truth? Had someone framed him? Or was this just another manipulation in a long line of deceptions? Jasmine may never know, but one thing was certain. Her wedding night had not just been the end of a marriage. It had been the beginning of a nightmare. Jasmine's story serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes, the people we trust most are the ones hiding the darkest secrets. The question remains, was Darius truly the monster she believed him to be, or was he just another victim in a far more twisted game? And if he was innocent, who was watching Jasmine now?